Kumlan and Ablak Gemara, we're commencing now the sixth parak. So slowly but surely we're making our way towards the end of the Masechta. Definitely more than halfway there. We're up to Hameicha Pedis. So the Gemara continues over here. We're continuing to sell all kinds of laws regarding selling product, what's included, what's not included. And here we're talking about selling a product that failed, or selling a product where there was sort of a misunderstanding. It works in one way, not another way, but you didn't spell out what you wanted, and the vendor made an assumption. And the question is, can the buyer then say, "Look, I want to reverse the whole deal"? Says the Mishnah, I sold you fruits, but I didn't specify if the fruits that I'm selling you is for consumption or for planting. And not all fruits are suitable for planting. The Zoran and the buyer went ahead and planted it, but it didn't work. He gave him the wrong fruits, but he never spelled out why he's buying the fruits in the first place. And furthermore, so when it comes to fruits, the vendor is perfectly within his right to think that the reason we're learning now that if a person buys things and didn't spell out what he's buying it for, and then the vendor gives you something which will work in some cases and some cases it won't, but you didn't tell him what you want it for. So the marshal, he sold you fruits. Fruits can be eaten. It can be eaten and it can be planted. He intended to use it to planting, but you didn't relay that to the vendor, and the vendor sold you fruit. It didn't work. But at least with fruits, the vendor is within his rights, because some people buy it for eating, some people buy it for planting. What about afilu zera pishton? When it comes to pishton, when it comes to flax, most people use it for planting, not really, flaxseed. Most people use it for planting, not really for food consumption. So there's a roiv there that says it's for planting. Lepoil, he planted it, didn't work. And the vendor will claim, I thought you're from the minority that you want it for eating. Nevertheless, the vendor is not responsible to replace it. Why? Because when it comes to money matters, we don't follow the rules of majority. Which we'll soon see is Machlekes Rabbi Shmuel. We had it in Hamaniach, we'll have it in Bava Basra. And this Mishnah would seem to conform with Shmuel that Ein Holchim b'Mammon Acharayv. Why don't you follow the Raiv probability? Because countering that Raiv, we have a Chazak, Cheshkas Mammon. The person you want to extract money, that person has the money, and we have a rule of which the money is sitting by that person probably belongs to that person. You want to overturn that rule. Raiv is insufficient. We need something more than Raiv. Now, there is traces in a few places who wants to say, not everyone agrees, that there are different degrees of Raiv. And therefore, just because we say a generic term, Ein Harim Raiv, sometimes even sure we made a Holchen Achar Raiv, because this Raiv over here, that most people use it for let's say, for planting, is a weak Raiv. But if it is a compelling Raiv, for example, by a Bezdin, you have 2 against 1, the halach is you always follow the 2. If Hein Holchem Mammon Acharayv and 2 say that you owe $100 and 1 says you don't, why do you follow? Because that's a much stronger Raiv. Why is a much stronger Raiv? First of all, some say because the Ruba di Isa Kaman, you have 2 kinds of Raivs. You have a Raiv which is the principle. Most people don't do this. Okay, that's maybe a weak Raiv. But a Raiv where the Raiv is right in front of you. Because 2 Dayanim said that the guy is responsible. That's a much stronger Raiv, and then everyone will really say Raiv. That's one opinion. Others say just the opposite, by the way. That just like you have the Raiv in front of us, the Miyat is in front of us. So that weakens the Raiv. But a Ruba de Lesser Kaman, a general rule in life. Most animals, when they're pregnant, they give birth. That's a general rule in life. The Miyat that says that sometimes they miscarry is not in front of us. So that Raiv is much stronger. Big Machlekes in Rishonim and Achrayim and Kedushin. Otherwise, how do we view that? The Avnei Miluim says the reason why this is called a weak Raiv is because this is not a Raiv in fact, it's a Raiv in how people think. People think that they want the seeds to plant. So it's not a factual Raiv. A factual Raiv is a strong Raiv. A Raiv in people's thinking, that's today's thinking. People can think tomorrow differently. But how you look how the world goes. Everybody's thinking changes all the time. A Raiv which is dependent on something else is called a weak Raiv. Regarding a Bezdin, traces elsewhere says that that's different, and everyone there agrees you follow 2 against 1 because Hamid Kilesa. Because the din is actually that minority dying is not allowed to go around, not like in the Habdul negotiation courts. You have a minority opinion, and you have a majority opinion. A minority has no opinion. He's not allowed to even say that, that I voted for you and what can I do? I was overruled. So anyway, getting back here. So ain't you don't have to pay. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, but what happens in a case where you sold something which the only purpose is to plant? There's no other use for this thing here, and it didn't work. Then the Tanakama would hold in that case. Of course, he's responsible. He sold you a dud, a DOA, then an arrival. Then of course he's responsible. We're talking about here that he says, "I thought you can eat it." Most people don't use it for eating, so. He says, when it comes to seeds in a garden which is dedicated to planting, and it's not meant to be eaten at all, and turned out to be it didn't grow, then you're responsible. What exactly does Shimon ben Gamliel adding to the Tanakama is a discussion in the Gemara. Says the Gemara, we learned if somebody sells a shoy to his chaver, right? Now there's two possible uses for a shoy. Either you're going to use it to plow your fields, or you're going to use it for consumption. Now, mine have kamina. If you use it plowing your field, you want a domesticated shirt, a shirt that can work with. If it's for shechting, what do you care if it's a wild shirt? And it doesn't matter. You're going to kill it. So what happened was, and now we're going to say that most people buy a shirt like that. Most people buy a shirt for working, for plowing. So I need a well-behaved shirt. Some people buy a shirt for eating. And what happened was the vendor sold him a wild shirt. The buyer did not specify why he's buying the shirt. Right, people who sell who buy a shirt are buying it in order to work in their fields. So they need a domesticated animal. The vendor sold him a wild animal, and when this guy realized that he can't work the animal, he went back to the vendor. He said, "Mekatos," and the vendor said, "Mekatos, you never told me what you wanted for, and I thought that you were from those few people that you wanted for shechting." So what happens in that case? That's the Mishnah. But that's why we bring this Gemara here, because it'll be a problem for the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, you sell a shirt to your friend, when the animals are gorer, aggressive. Is Rav says, Rav says you can claim that the whole deal should be unraveled. And Shmuel says, the vendor can say, I sold you for shechting. Who cares if it's a nakhed? You're going to kill it. The first question you might ask, why is there machlekes? Obviously, one animal costs more than the other. The one you're going to work with probably costs more than the one you're going to shech. Because the one you're going to work with, eventually you can shech anyway. So you have two uses from it. You're going to work with it till it gets older, whatever, and then you shech it. So before we even get to that, let's see. Let's see the person, the buyer. If he's a guy that always buys animals for shechting, then fine, then it's for shechting. But if this particular person is a guy, always comes in, what do you call it? For working, then obviously it's for working. So when I answer begavra, there's a person dissolving lahachil. The person who buys for both, the person who sells for both, and therefore can't tell from that. Okay, pretty much fine. But let's say let's say how much money you paid. Let's see how much you paid, and then we'll see. If you paid more than we probably wanted for working, and if you paid less, you probably want for shechting. Even though we had before machlekes the Gemara, if dummy maydin or not, all the Rishonim say that here is different, and everyone's going to agree here that dummy maydin. Everyone's going to agree here that the money will work for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is over there you have a roiv and you have a chazaka that are both saying the same thing. Most people call a tzemed, a boker. The case of there, we remember arguing about when you sold the yoke, you sell the animals with the yoke, or the yoke is on its own without the animals. Now, most people call a yoke, and an animal. Some people, when they talk about the whole set, they say, "Give me the yoke," which they meant with the animals as well, all up. So they say, "Machlek is what it is," and the Chachamim say that it's too bad. Damim is not Maydin, you're stuck with the yoke and you don't get the animals with it. Even though you pay an exorbitant amount, maybe you're Michael, whatever. Damim is not Maydin. Over there, the Raiv people support the Meicher that a yoke is a yoke and Boker is Boker. So number one, the Raiv is supporting the vendor, and the Chazak is supporting the vendor. He already got paid. He has the money. So you want the Damim to cancel two things. You want the Damim to go against the Raiv, right? Because this particular person paid a lot of money, much more than what a normal yoke. It's a zarai that he meant boker as well. Number one, and number two, you want to go there chazak moment. A dummy cannot go against the two coupled together. For in our case over here, the rave is going one way and the chazak is going another way. Most people buy an animal radius, which means that what that this particular buyer is right. What do you give me an animal I can't work with, right? So the rave supports the buyer. The chazaka supports the vendor. He already has the money. So in this case, the chacham you say, damim don't tell you anything because you can go either way. Why should the damim support one against the other? Only time that they say that sorry. In this case, damim will In this case, chacham will be moide that damim medin because whatever the damim is, they have support from either the chazaka or from the raiv. In this case, for example, he paid extra money that supports the raiv. Because the right people buying it, taka, are buying it for working. So because over here it has one support and you're only fighting one, so it's two. The raiv together with the damim are fighting the chazaka. That maybe they'll say. Before you want the damim to fight against both the raiv and the chazaka. That you cannot say. That's one of the hezbeim. Okay, taking about it further. Lloyd, you know why over here in this case we can't look at the money? Suddenly there was an inflation, a hyperinflation, and food and beef became extremely expensive. In fact, you pay the same price of both. So damim and not modin. So what's the discussion there? Let's say I say it's a mekar toss. So what? I could take the animal and sell it and make my money back, or I give the meicha back his animal and give back my money because there's no loss there. When I can understand the machlek is the meicha made some profit over here because he sold you you paid more than what you normally should pay, and for an animal for consumption, and you wanted to give the money back. Okay, the meicha says I'm going to get a loss. So we have a discussion. If it makes no difference here, because whatever the animal is, we'll let him give it back to the meicha, and that's it. So the Gemara it's a big tircha. What happens? You have to basically shech the animal and get all your money back by selling, getting back the animal. Who has to go ahead and turn this animal into money? Is it the lekeach or is it the meicha? That's the machlekes. Because the lekeach says the meicha mekrotos, you take it back. It's your problem. Give me back my cash. You can get your money back, but you go find buyers, not me. Or do we say no? That like Shmuel says, ein hechma it's the lekeich's problem. So what are we talking about? If you're telling me that the vendor, let's say, he's not cashed up, and he doesn't have the means to pay back the lekeich's money, he already spent it, it's gone. Then what's the big deal? Then la'akiv, Rav said it's a mekach tos, right? Which means there's no sale. If there's no sale according to Rav, that means the buyer must give back the animal to the meicher, and then there's a debt now. The meicher owes the lekeich money, but he doesn't have the money, and the animal is not worth whatever the price he paid. Right? We're going back to the normal case. He paid 100 when such an animal is only worth 50. So there's because it's he gave an animal that's a gorer, right? So it's worth a lot less. So therefore, in that case over there, at least why does he have to give the animal back? Let the buyer keep the animal, because the din is that you can pay back your loans either with cash or shavik kesef. We learned in Gemara Bava Kama, kedushin shavik kesef kekesef. So the vendor doesn't have the money, so the vendor then can pay back with the animal. So why does it have say mekach tos, or if the animal please get something back? But mekach tos, or if the animal's worth the whole thing, then keep it. Mekach tos means you got to give it back. There's no sale. That's what mekach tos is. Otherwise, Rav would have just said, keep the animal in lieu of whatever it is. Rav says, mekach tos, give it back. Why give it back? If he has no money, I'm going to keep it as payment. No, boss. Either let him keep the animal by himself. Why did you say mekach tos? He has to give it back. Because the people say, Mari Rashvasa from the owner of of your loan is part of the effort. Get paid with anything you have, even brand. Gemara said the reason why he struggled like no, talking about the vendor has money. So comes along Rav and says the vendor has money. Mekach tos. If there never was a sale, the vendor has to pay you out the cash. Is Rav Amar Hadeza mekach tos? It's a deal falls apart. and Basa Ruba Azlinen, and therefore he says you go after the Roiv and Ruba. Most people buy it in order to work the field with, and because most people buy it to work the field, then the deal falls apart, give down the back, and he has to reimburse you no matter whatever you paid. And Shmuel Amalach, Ki Azlina Bas Ruba, when did we go after Roiv Bi Isura? When there's by Yisurim, we say it was two chad betrei, one piece of tray from two kosher, we say that it's possible, but all that kind of stuff. But the minor law, when it comes to money matters, no. And the logic of the training say because there's a cheskes moment against it. Now, it seems big machlek is a but it's all over Shas. That what exactly Gemara says, and if he has money, he has to pay cash. So when do we say Shavah Kesef Kekesef? We had in Baba Kamal of Zayin, Papa, they say that we learn out at Shavah Kesef Kekesef. Make time about it. When you just said right now if he has cash, he has to pay cash. Is it only in case we don't have cash? It says over there that whole meal made that you can pay whatever you want. There's a big machlekes. Somebody showing Lim Pshat the Gemara here. Interesting. Which Rashbam completely discounts, but others showing say that's Pshat. When the Gemara says that if he has the money, he must give back the money. He's talking about if he still has the original money that the buyer gave him. If he didn't yet spend it, if he didn't spend it, it didn't become his. And if it didn't become his, then he has to give it back to the buyer. But if he already spent the money, but he has money, then he has a choice. Shabbat Kesef makes no difference. I think Gemara says over here that if he has money, he has to pay back money. That's talking about only he has original money. Actually a Rashi in the beginning of Bava Basra as well, but it talks about the mixes and talks about if says Halech. Rashi says that he didn't use the money yet. Others say, who cares if it's the same money, not the same money. If I have the cash and I say here, Halech. So they're the same idea. Sorry? Yeah, who cares? But so the Medayik Rashi there, but if it's the original money, it's as if you never gave it to me. So the same idea like these are showing here. Anyway, the Rebbein Tam has a rule like this. This is how he breaks up the rule and it's quoted everywhere. Rebbein Tam said there are three levels. A Baal Chayiv, there's a Baal Chayiv, there's Nezikin damages, and there is an employee. A Baal Chayiv, you owe money. He lent you money. He expects to get paid in cash. So if you have cash, you can't give him a watch and say, here, it's your problem, go sell it. You must pay him cash because that's what he lent you. Now, smach zeh, he lent you thinking you'll reimburse him. You'll pay him back with the same money. If you don't have money, then you can pay him shavah kesef, and it's the labor, the malva cancer labor. You turn it into money. You go to a pawn shop, sell it, and give me the cash. No, that he can't say. Buying a zikin, we learn out shavah kesef. Even the chatchila, there was no loan there. I broke a window. I have to pay. I can pay you shavah kesef. Whatever I can pay you shavah kesef. When it comes to an employee who's waiting for cash, even if the balabas, the employer, doesn't have cash, he only has shavah kesef, it is his duty to convert that into cash and pay the employee with cash. That's the general rule that we say. Tell you what further. Okay, now we're going to ask questions on Rav and Shmuel today and tomorrow. Tell you what, I'll ask you a question. There's the Tos's brother wrote a sefer. It's in the back of Cheshmish, most of the old Cheshmish, I don't know the new ones, in Chelik Beis. It's called Kuntas Asveikus, and there they deal with the questions because this whole thing of Rav is a very difficult thing, and one of the most difficult things to understand in logic, like a quagmire. So Gemara says, "Be sudim your follow Rav," but not when it comes to any mamadus. And yet, when it comes to din in the fashas, we learn in Tzach and Afilal, other places, you go after Rav. Most Eidim make a mistake of one day when they said one Eid said the third day he killed him, another guy said other month, another guy said the fourth day. Oh, most Eidim make a mistake, on one day, but it's Chaydish day, not sure. And we're going to kill a guy. By Mammon, we say, you don't go after Rav. We need 100%. Ein Hochim Mammon Achar Rav. When it comes to the Fashas, we're going to follow the rules of Rav, and we're going to kill people based on that. How can Din in the Fashas be more lenient than Din in Mammon? After all that's said and done, we're going to kill somebody based on a rave, and we're not going to kill. I mean, that's the fact. But in logic, it's very hard to accept. So they they try to come up with all kinds of things and make chalukim when we say Roy, but then and then the first when we say Roy, when we say there. It's just a difficult thing in logic. That then the first should be lighter or more lenient than the Mamas. Even though the fact of what you said is 100% right. This is a Cheskes Mammon, and there we don't have the Chazaka. Others argue it's Cheskes Kashas. The guy didn't murder somebody. Every year has a Cheskes Kashas. So it's anyway. Tomorrow we'll talk a bit more about Chazaka. Thinking about it further, makes us ask a question. Aisha and his almond and his gasha, there was no ksuva in this particular situation. Either she lost it, or maybe it's in a place that memory learned that people don't write ksuvas. The get is really your ksuva. Aisha Shazam became a widow, and his gasha was divorced, and now she comes to collect the ksuva. He I met a psulisat. When you married me, I was a psula. I'm entitled to 200, like it says in our ksuvas. He claims you only an almana. If in the case of divorce, and or a widow, the children say you're almana, and therefore you're only entitled to 100. What do we do? So it says as follows: Im yesh edim. If there are witnesses, she yotza behenuma, that she went around there with a veil, or Rashi says like a basket on her head, but a veil. And very interesting why it's called henumas from the word sleeping, because so like the kala, you either think could fall asleep and nobody knows the difference, but you have these thick veils. Nobody can see what's going on. The Roisha Perua, and they used to go to the chuppah, clear, not like some of the people today, mach with the chuppah, they wear a sheitel. They used to dafka go to the chuppah to show that she's a kala and so psula. Ksuvasa Masaim. The ksuva is $200. In other words, if there are edim, that proves to us that she was a ksula at the time. Beistuis, time the edim only if she can bring, because she wants to be meitzim, she wants to take money out, she has to bring proof. Edim. Only edim works. Haleka edim lie. What about the Roy? Most women who get married are psulas or almonas. Most women get married are psulas. No, if you hold like Rav, that holchem b'mamanach who killed her edim or not? He has to prove that she wasn't a psula at the time. Not she has to prove that she was. Go after most women. But most women who get married are psulas. Amar Ravina answers. We're saying more psulas. From the ikal we can say roiv noshim psulas nisais. You're right. On the one hand, you have a roiv that says most women who get married are getting married for the first time. Or miyat almanas. You have a miyat. The chol hanisas, and anyone who gets married a psula, there's another roiv that's contrary, and that is yesh lakol. Everyone remembers the chasna. Usually the chuppah was a big affair; the whole town was invited. And if she's a psula, remember, almana is a small little thing, nobody remembers. But a psula, everybody remembers the wedding. So there's a roiv that says that most girls get married at psulas. There's a roiv that says that most psulas that get married, everybody knows about, and nobody remembers her getting married at a psula. So therefore, you have another that roiv says she probably wasn't a psula, because if she was, people would remember there was a koil. V'zu the ein lekol isle ruba. Her roiv was shattered. So right now the Gemara thought that every single woman who gets married as a psula, everyone knows about. So the Gemara can ask the question: if everyone knows about it, then even if Eidim come along and say that she was a psula, why are we believing the Eidim? Everyone is an aid that she was not a psula, because everyone would know. The Gemara takes it literally everyone. The witnesses, if there was no call, must be a false Eidim. The Gemara modifies their statement. Most girls that get married, psulas, most have a curl. So v'zu hoy the curl isle ruba. So here is different than normal curls. So even Rav will be made. On the one hand, there's a Rav that says she's a psula. On the other hand, there's a Rav that tells us she probably wasn't a psula. How come nobody remembers? So therefore, the two Ravs contradict each other, and that's why in this case Rav is made. You need Eidim, and we're not going to follow the Rav because there is no Rav to follow here. You have two clashing Ravs. Saying about it further, Toshma coming here. But the coil is not that they saw, because they heard. So that's not really Aedis as far as the Aedim are concerned. So they heard in the town. Everybody was invited to Chassid, but everyone heard there was a big thing coming down because she was getting married, and that's the coil. What do you call it? And the Rashbam explains, I guess every time Absula got married, it was a big deal for the whole town. was a big simcha. And people remember it was a simcha. Says he going to write the touch my coming here. If somebody sells, the din is that if an oval is davening during Shiva in a shul, can't have a minion, the oval doesn't say tachton, but the shul still says tachton. But if a chassan is in a shul, and during the Shiva Mishnah, no one says tachton. Because we're all besimcha with a chassan, because that's what it is. So the same thing here. And we're part of it. So that's what it's saying over here. Toshma coming here. If somebody sells an ebed to his friend, if someone sells a slave to his friend, the nimtza ganef. Turns out to be, I can't work with this ebed. He's a ganef. I can't trust him alone in the house. Kuvustus. Here, big Machlekes are showing him always. Rashi holds Kuvustus is a kidnapper. And then the Taisa asks a question, says in the Medrash that they said to Moshe Rabbeinu that Moshe was a Kuvustus. What does that even mean? So Taisa learned Kuvustus means a gambler. Not sure how much that was better about Moshe Rabbeinu, but Taisa learned that he was a Mesachim Kuvia. He was a gambler. Bottom line is, so you can't, who use up all the money or a kidnapper. So how can you? So give me my money back. I can't use this person's nebet. The din is higiu fafaln. The deals are closed. But at least in Mizuyin, if it turns out to be that this person was an armed bandit and he kills people, and oi muchtav the malchus. Interesting that what do you call it? The Rashbam says the fact that he's a list of Mizuyin is not that he'll kill me. I'm sure that somebody will come and take revenge and kill him. So I'm not going to have much use out of this guy, right? Because it's similar to Mukhtav al-Malchus. That means the government one day is going to find him, catch him, and they're going to hang him. So then he says, look, give it back. I'm giving it back to you because you sold me a guy who's going to be killed. What am I going to do with him? A guy will kill you sold me. Now, let's understand the first part. My time, why is it that you say too bad? Why would you say too bad? Even though it turned out to be a ganef, a useless, too bad. You're stuck with the seven. Lav, isn't it? Mishum the ruba hachi is no most people, most ganavim. What do you call it? Sorry, most slaves. Are ganavim or kidnappers. And therefore, you knew before you bought it, you knew that's what you're getting. So what kind of people are going to be sold about it? First of all, nimka b'gnei by Yidden, and or even a Kanani. I mean, what kind of people generally? People who caught stealing, and now the person goes ahead and sells them off. So you knew that, and therefore you accepted it. So what do we see from here? That the reason why he's stuck with it is because we'll go after Rav. According to Shmuel, holds Ein Hochem. Who cares if most of body maganavim? You told me I'm from the meat that I want an neighbor that I can work with. Give me my money back. Ain't hochem. But over here, what you're saying here is that we're saying too bad the deal's a deal because we are going after the Rav. Says the Gemara, Kontra Shmuel, Kula hachi isnehu. It's not Rav avodi maganavim. Every single ever is a ganav. You cannot trust them at all. And because every enav, even Shmuel's made that the deal's a deal because you knew beforehand that this is what you're going to end up with. This case is a little bit different than other cases here because the Rav is going, you want to take the miyat against Cheskes Mammon. This is going a little bit hard to understand. In this case here, the vendor has the money and you're using the Rav to support the vendor, not using the Rav to take out of the vendor. In the case before, Rav comes along and says that we'll take a Rav and go against the Cheskes Mammon. Rubel Radya, you sold me an animal that I can't use, give me my money back. Over here, the Rav is supporting the vendor. The Rav is not going against the Cheskes Mammon, the Rav is supporting Cheskes Mammon. The deal's a deal because Rav Avadim Aganavim. And who said Shmuel would argue in this case? Shmuel says that a Rav cannot go against Cheskes Mammon. Here, the Rav is supporting the Cheskes Mammon. So you need to understand exactly what the Gemara's question here is. Anyway, one more Toshma. Toshma coming here. Shoy shenogach es hapora. We learned this Gemara about Kama. Shoy gored an animal. Venim to ubra. Sorry? Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Okay. I didn't have a chance to look up too many, but my apologies. The name's Uber Betsida. They found a baby calf in the side. The question is, did it happen before the goring or after goring? So we learned over there, Sumcha says you pay half a nezik for the animal because it's a tam and you killed an animal, you pay half a nezik. But leparo or vlad, and it comes to the vlad, you would have to pay half, but it's a suffix. We're not sure what happened. And Sumcha says, mom and hamut was suffix. Now the question is, why? Lema, let us say, let's follow Roy Paris. Roy Paris normally don't miscarry. Why? You're saying, what's the suffix? Maybe the animal miscarried before it was gored. Most animals don't miscarry. They carry the full term. So the Roiv says that you owe the money. So the Roiv wants to take out a Cheshka's mammon. And yet we're saying, no, it's a suffix. Isn't it? The Roiv Paris misabah v'yolis. Surely it happened because of the goring. So how come over here we're not going to follow the Rav? We're not following the Rav. The Rav animals will pay the full term. So according to Rab, who holds you go after the Rav, you should be paying for half. And we're saying we're not following the Rav. We're going to take out of the Cheskas mammon of the mazik. No, it's not good enough. Which means we follow Shmuel. Ein holchim mammon achar Rav. Says the Gemara. Awesome over there. You're right. Most animals carry full term. But we also have a rule that when it comes to the zikin, you're only liable if you actually were mazik. We're having more in Shabbos, but grama ben a zikin. We have Babakama and Kanis. That grama ben a zikin is potter. If you cause the damage, you didn't damage, you are potter. Especially if your animal was on the guide of a damage, a potter. So there's another possibility. It happened because of goring, probably. But there's two ways. One is the gorer, the aggressive animal, was standing in front of the other animal of the cow. And the cow got so scared from this, ox that's coming to attack it that the cow miscarried. So the ox caused it to happen, but you're not liable for that because that's only a grama ben a zikin. When are you liable if the ox came and physically gored the animal, and as a result of that, the cow miscarried? So and that's the suffix here, and therefore it's an equal suffix. It's not, of course, right. Maybe we could say also the animal, the gorer, stood in front of the animal, and the cow, Pasha, was frightened, and therefore caused it to miscarry. And for that you don't pay because it's only a gram of benzikin. But the maybe we could say it came from behind, and physically. So the animal wasn't scared, had no idea that the ox was behind it, and then he gave a wallop, he gave a gore. He peel and causes the miscarriage. So therefore, mama was suffix. It's mama suffix. We don't know what happened. Okay, we'll stop over there. We'll continue in Mitzvah Shem.